let's continue preparing for Hajj. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about the obligations of Hajj, the Wajibs or the Wajibat of Hajj. That's different from the integrals of Hajj. This difference between the integrals and the obligations, when it comes to the Shafi'i school, is special to the chapter of Hajj. Otherwise, the obligation and the integral are the same in the Shafi'i school. Rather, though, here integral means those worships that make up the Hajj itself, which is the Ihram and circling the Kaaba and striding between the two mountains and shaving or trimming and keeping the order in most of that. That's the Hajj itself. But beyond that, there are still some obligations that you have to fulfill in your Hajj. These obligations are not the what make the Hajj itself. Yani, they are not what make up the very Hajj. Rather, they are obligations that come along with performing Hajj. If you don't fulfill these obligations, then you have to, as it's worded, you have to uh, patch that with blood. Yujbaru bidam. Yujbaru bidam. If I translate that statement very literally, it means it's patched with blood. You'll see what that means, insha'Allah ta'ala. That means if you don't do one of those obligations, then there's something you're going to have to do. That's different from the integrals. If you don't do an integral of the Hajj, you're just not going to even get out of you're not going to have fulfilled the Hajj. You will not have fulfilled the Hajj if you skip any of its integrals. If you skip the obligations of Hajj, though, you could still have fulfilled your Hajj. Imam Abu Shuja' says that وَوَاجِبَاتُ الْحَجِّ غَيْرُ الْأَرْكَانِ ثَلَاثَةُ أَشْيَاء. The obligations of the Hajj that are not integrals are three things. أحدها, one of them, وهو واجب على المعتمر, which is also an obligation on a person performing the Umrah. So this first obligation in Hajj also is obligatory on someone who's performing Umrah. Al-Ihramu min al-Miqat, making Ihram from the specified station. Meaning, here, not going beyond this specified station without being in the state of Ihram. If you pass that station, yani, depending on whichever way you're coming towards Mecca, there are different stations. If you pass your station without being in a state of Ihram, but while wanting to make Hajj or Umrah, then that's haram, that's a sin. You have to go back and then make Ihram from there. As-sadiqi biz-zamani wal-makani. And this word we're translating, yani the Arabic word is miqat, miqat. Here I translated it for you as, the specified station. Ihram from the specified station. As you can understand, I was now talking to you about place. But there's also miqat of time. Miqat of time. Miqat of time is the time in which it's valid for you to enter into the state of Ihram. فزماني بالنسبة للحج, the miqat of time for the one who wants to make Hajj is شوال وذو القعدة وعشر ليال من ذي الحجة. The entire month of Shawwal, the first of which is the Eid. Shawwal, the first is Eid al-Fitr. So from the Eid and the entire month of Shawwal, and then the entire next month of Dhul Qa'dah, and then 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah, it's up to the Eid. The Eid of Adha, the Eid of Adha. But not the whole Eid of Adha, only up until Fajr time. Yani, Eid al-Adha comes in at Maghrib time. So you have from the first of Shawwal, which is Eid al-Fitr, and the whole month of Shawwal, then the whole next month, Dhul Qa'dah, then the next month after that is Dhul Hijjah. You only get 10 nights of those before you run out of time for Ihram, for Hajj. 10 nights, this means that that time runs out at Fajr time. So Maghrib, the Eid of Adha at Maghrib time, and then Isha time. And before that, Asr time, Dhuhr time, before the Eid, which is the ninth Yani, Dhuhr on the ninth of Dhul Hijjah, Asr on the ninth of Dhul Hijjah. Then the sun goes down, it's the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the Eid, that's Maghrib time. So that night, and then Isha, and then the time runs out at Fajr. That's for the one who's making Hajj. The way I remembered it is that's from the Eid until the Eid, but not the whole Eid, Eid al-Adha, only up until Fajr time. وَأَمَّا بِالنِّسْبَةِ لِلْعُمْرَةِ, but concerning Umrah, فَجَمِيعُ السَّنَةِ وَقْتٌ لِإِحْرَامِهَا, the entire year is time for Ihram, for Umrah. You just check, you have good voice, yes? No one's complaining. So as for Umrah, all of the year is time for Umrah. يعني any time of the year. والميقات المكاني للحج في حق المقيم بمكة نفس مكة. Now, what is the spatial, يعني what's the place, the miqat of place? The spatial means pertaining to place. What's the spatial miqat, not the time miqat? The spatial miqat, the space, the place miqat for a person who lives in Mecca or is in Mecca. It's going to be Mecca itself. That's if he's making Hajj. So a person who's making Hajj, not Umrah, excuse me, a person is making Hajj and he's in Mecca. Yani, let me say it this way. A person is in Mecca and he decides he wants to make Hajj. So he has to get into the state of Ihram. So what does he do? Does he leave Mecca and go to a miqat and make his Ihram from there? No. If he's already in Mecca, then Mecca is his miqat. So he just makes his intention right there. Makkiyan kana aw afaqiya, whether he's a Meccan or he's from somewhere else. وَأَمَّا لِلْعُمْرَةِ فَمِيقَاتُهُ أَدْنَى الْحِلِّ. But the Ihram place for Umrah, the Ihram place for Umrah, for someone who's in Mecca, is outside of the Haram. The minimum outside of the Haram, or the closest of what's out of Haram. So the Haram of Mecca, that's the sacred territory. You can't be making Hajj or Umrah without being in the state of Ihram. You should not enter the Haram for Hajj or Umrah without being in the state of Ihram, unless you're already in Mecca and you want to make Hajj. Then you're going to make your intention for Ihram right where you are. If you are already in Mecca and you want to make Umrah, you leave the Haram, the sacred territory. How far you have to go? Not far at all. Just get out of the Haram. Some books said even less than a footstep or out. Even less than a footstep out. Then you make your intention for Ihram, for Umrah, and then you go back into the Haram. so that you can do the worships. وَأَمَّا غَيْرُ الْمُقِيمِ بِمَكَّةِ. Now, concerning someone who's not residing in Mecca, فَمِيقَاتُ الْمُتَوَجِّهِ مِنَ الْمَدِينَةِ الشَّرِيفَةِ على مشرفها أفضل الصلاة والسلام للحج والعمرة ذو الحليفة. Then, what's his miqat? Depends on which direction he's coming from. So, if he's coming from the direction of Medina, then his miqat is the place called Dhul Hulayfa. So he should not go past Dhul Hulayfa without being in a state of ihram. وَتُعْرَفُ بِآبَارِ عَلِي. And it has another name, آبار علي, آبار علي. والمتوجه من الشام ومصر والمغرب الجحفة. Now, so the author here says, والمتوجه من الشام ومصر والمصر والمغرب ومصر والمتوجه من الشام ومصر والمغرب الجحفة. And anyone who's coming from the Levant or from Egypt or Morocco, then his miqat is a place called Juhfa. وَقَدْ انْبَهَمَ أَثَرُهَا. However, the trace of this base is gone. إلا أن من أحرم من رابغ فهو على يقين أنه لا يجاوزها. However, anyone who makes his ihram from the place that's called Rabigh, then he certainly will not have crossed Juhfa. Yani, you can't find Juhfa now exactly the spot in Juhfa, in the area, in the place called Juhfa. You can't find the base, the miqat. So then you just, for example, if you made ihram from the place called Rabigh, then you'll be safe. لهذا يحرم أهل هذه النواحي منها. This is why the people of those areas do make ihram from Rabigh to be safe. هذه الأيام, in these days. والمتوجه من تهامة اليمن يلملم. And the ihram for someone who's coming from Tihamatul Yemen is a place called Yalamlam. والمتوجه من نجد الحجاز ونجد اليمن قرن. And anyone coming from the Hijaz plateau or the Yemen plateau, then his miqat is Qarn. والمتوجه من المشرق ذات عرق. And anyone who's coming from the east, like he's coming from Iraq, then his miqat is a place called Dhat Irq. Now, I just told you all those names of places. And probably if I ask you right now, repeat it back to me. If you didn't already know it, you won't be able to. And maybe if I tell you right now, read to me what you wrote in your notes right now, maybe most of you haven't written some notes there. But when we studied this knowledge, came in the test, what are the mawaqit? What are the mawaqit? What are the miqats? And you have to say all of what I just read to you. If you're coming from this place, is this. If you're coming from this place, is this. If you're coming from this place, is this. Even if you're not going to make the Hajj, but because you're a student of knowledge, you have to memorize that. So that's the first wajib, making the ihram from the miqat. والثاني من واجبات الحج رمي جمرة العقبة. The second obligation is, now the author, he could have just said rami, throwing, yani pelting, throwing stones, stone throwing, a rami, the stone throwing, or someone might say stoning. In particular, though, رمي جمرة العقبة يوم النحر, he needs to throw stones at the station called Jamratul Aqaba on the Eid day, starting on the at the midnight of Eid, starting the midnight of Eid. So starting the midnight of Eid means probably going to be Isha time, which means that's also a time, what, for being at Arafah. So if you want to understand these rules of Hajj well, then you need to maybe draw out some diagrams for yourself. If you want to understand when these worships start and stop in relation to each other, then maybe you need to draw a diagram out for yourself. So we just said, and we said last week, Ihram is, sorry, not Ihram. Being at Arafah is from after the Zawal on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah until the dawn, after Zenith on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, after Zenith on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, until dawn. So all of that is time for Arafah. So after Zenith, that means Dhuhr time, then comes in Asr time, that's all daytime on the 9th. Then the sun goes down, so it's the 10th because the night comes before the day. At Maghrib time, sunset. Then Isha comes in, and then let's say, and this is Eid day, by the way, the 10th is the Eid day. So this is the night of the Eid we're talking about here. So let's say it's Isha time, and it's the Eid night, and then midnight came in. So now you can throw, and you might even still be at Arafah, or you could have gone to Arafah and left, or maybe somebody didn't get there yet. You still have some time. I'm saying that to tell you how these activities, these worship activities, overlap with each other. So he says, Yawm al-Nahr, on the day of Eid, this throwing at the station of Al-Aqaba will be. وَيَدْخُلُ وَقْتُهُ بِمُنْتَصِفِ لَيْلَةِ النَّحْرِ. Its time starts at midnight of Eid. وَيَمْتَدُّ إِلَى آخِرِ أَيَّامِ التَّشْرِيقِ. And it stretches until the last of the days of Tashriq. You know the days of Tashriq? Those are the 3 days after Eid al-Adha. Some people are confused. They say, how many days is the Eid? So the answer is 1 day. But after that 1 day, there's 3 more days that are also holidays. So Eid is 1 day, and then there's 3 days after it, the days of Tashriq. So that's 4-day holiday for Muslims. وَرَمْيُ الْجِمَارِ الثَّلَاثِ أيام التشريق الثلاثة. And also, it's obligatory to throw at the 3 stations. There are 3 stations throwing stones. At midnight starts the time for one of those, which is the one called Jamratul Aqaba. But there's 2 more Jamras besides Jamratul Aqaba. So Jamratul Aqaba has its own thing, which is when the midnight of Eid comes in. That's the time to start throwing at that Jamra in particular, and that time lasts until the end of the 3 days of Tashriq. And then during the 3 days of Tashriq, you need to throw at all the 3 stations. So don't mix that. Yani, that's 3 stations you're going to throw stones at for 3 days. Each day you're going to go to 3 stations. ورمي الجمار الثلاث أيام التشريق أيام التشريق الثلاثة بعد الزوال. When does the time start for the 3 after Zenith on for the 3 days? So the first day, let's say you're waiting, the sun rose, it got into its zenith, and then once it tilts out of its zenith, which is Dhuhr time, now you can start throwing at the 3 stations. So you throw at the first one, then move on to the other one, and then move on to the other one. That's 1 day. Then the next day, like that. Then the next day after, like that. With a detail we'll see, inshallah, about the 3rd day. Sometimes you can skip the 3rd day because the religion's so easy. But let's stick to the original way first, 3 days. يبدأ وجوبا بالأقرب إلى مكة وهي التي تلي مسجد الخيف. So after the zenith, for those 3 days, you have to start with the one that's closest to Mecca, the one that's next to Masjid al-Khayf. وَيَرْمِي كُلَّ جَمْرَةٍ بِسَبْعِ حَصَيَاتٍ. One then at each station throws 7 pebbles. واحدة بعد واحدة, one at a time. 7 مرات, one at a time, 7 times. فلو رمى حصاتين دفعة حسبتا واحدة. So if one were to throw 2 pebbles at once, they would both be counted as one. You have to do 7 throws. ولو رمى حصاة واحدة 7 مرات كفى. And had a person thrown 1 pebble 7 times, so he threw it once, then he went to get it, and he threw it again, then he went to get it, and he threw it 7 times, that would be valid. ويشترط كون المرمي به حجرا. And it's a condition that what he throws is a stone or a rock. The stories about this are an indication of the level of ignorance that the nation of Muhammad has fallen into in this time of ours. Because it is reported that people go there and they throw shoes and they throw trash and they throw all sorts of things. Even one person, out of his ignorance, he thought he was throwing stones at the devil. A lot of people believe they're throwing stones at the devil. It's not the case. You're just throwing stones there as the worship that Allah commanded you to do. Not because the devil is chained there. One person went there and he believed that he was throwing stones at the devil. And he believed that he spotted the devil. So he threw a stone and he hit him. He said, I saw him, so I threw the stone and hit him. Then he moved, so I threw again and I hit him again. Every time he moved, I hit him again. So who's the poor person he's hitting? Allahu A'lam. And also, so how are they going to get rid of all those pebbles? The angel's going to take them, but what if there's a lot of people who don't have accepted worship? Then the angels are not going to take those pebbles. And it is said that the Saudi government has to employ bulldozers every year for the removal of stones. That's an indication of how many people then are not having an accepted worship in this time that we live in. وَيُشْتَرَطُ كَوْنُ الْمَرْمِيِّ بِهِ حَجَرًا. And it's a condition that what he threw is a rock or stone. فَلَا يَكْفِي غَيْرُهُ كَلُؤْلُؤْ وَجِسْ. So it wouldn't be valid to throw something else like a pearl or a piece of plaster, but it would be valid to throw a diamond because that's a rock. وَكَوْنُ الرَّمْيِ بِالْيَدِ. And it has to be that he throws it with his hand. وَقَصْدُ الْمَرْمَى. And it's also a condition that he aims at the pelting station. وَتَحَقُّقُ إِصَابَتِهِ. And it's a condition that he verifies that he hit his target. Yani that he got it in range. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Those are the last of the obligations of the Hajj. So we'll stop there, and then inshallah next week we can read about this next paragraph that Abu Shuja has for us. We'll see what he has. Do you have any question I can answer for you?
Wa
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Repeat again what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about the pebbles.
Can you repeat, please?
What did the Prophet said about the pebbles?
What did he say about the pebbles?
Yes, the indication about pebbles.
That those pebbles are collected by angels from someone whose worship is accepted. So if everyone who did it, if his worship was accepted, that means there won't be any pebbles left there because the angels will take them. But in these days, they have to bring bulldozers to remove all the pebbles. That means that a lot of people don't have valid worship or accepted worship. Yeah, go ahead. Do you have another question?
Yes, the question is, where do people get that? That's the devil they thought it is. Something came up, or something somebody.
Because of the story. I think it's because of the story of Abraham. When Abraham was taking his son to sacrifice him, the devil was trying to distract them. So Abraham threw stones at the devil at three different places, and he hit him each time. So some people then they believe that when they go to Hajj, the devil is chained up in these stations so that the believers can throw rocks at him. But this is not the case. You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum,
Question.
Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead.
Is it possible for someone to complete Hajj in one day, 12 hours?
Is it possible to do all the integrals in one day? Yes. But then you still have those obligations on the days of Tashriq. You have 3 days of Tashriq. It's possible to leave before the third day. If you leave before Maghrib, then that third day of Tashriq is dropped for you.
Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu
Ameen wa
alaikum.
fiq. Wa alaikum salam. You said,
Ameen.
is it the intention? Maybe the Hajj isn't accepted. For whatever reason, it's not accepted. That's why we're learning these rules now. So you learn how to do a proper, acceptable worship.
Say, think about
Yes.
is there some of the brothers that have a group that goes to make Hajj and
Yes.
still make
Yeah.
still the thing that he know, but still follow them around? Can you do that?
Can you repeat that last part, please?
One know the rules, know what he need to do. They can do fall back, but can he or her follow the group?
Can he or her follow the group
Yes.
if he knows the rules?
I mean, he know the rules, but can't one follow the one you came with a group of people? I mean,
Yeah, sure. Like if he came with a group, he can stick with his group. If that's what you're asking me.
Yes, that's what I'm just asking that because I know sometimes people do go over there and maybe not know the rules, but they follow those who do know. And
Okay. I didn't even understand what you were asking me. Well, he has to learn, just like anything else. He can't just go there and look and say, "What are the people doing? I'll do whatever it looks like the people are doing." That's not valid.
that's what I'm asking.
That's just like if a person goes into a masjid and then he doesn't know how to pray and he just says, "What are the people doing? I'll do like them." And then he sees them line up, so he just lines up. He has no idea. And then they start reciting something he doesn't even know what to do. Then they bend over and he's like, "Okay," and then he bends over. So that's not valid. You said, do we believe in Islam that a person's mood can be influenced by the phases of the moon? I have not learned that this is an Islamic belief. I never took it in any of the books of Aqidah. You said, what did you say about one who uses the same stone again and again? It's valid. If he threw one stone 7 times, that's valid. Question, where are the miqats exactly? I never looked, to be honest with you.
Sheikh Raid, what was the other name for Miqat Ahl Sham, or is it Abar Ali? What was the other name for it?
Dhul Hulayfa.
Dhul Hulayfa. And was
Yes.
Yalamlam Miqat Ahl Yaman?
Yes.
Okay. Barakallahu fikum.
I mean, wafikum. When I had to memorize that, that's how I remembered it. Because Yalamlam sounds like Yemen.
The door is open.
And hold on. And that's what Irq, it sounds like Iraq. That's how I remembered it. And then the other ones I had to just remember them. Yes, question. Go ahead.
Yes, if you go on Hajj, can one Haji have been assigned another Haji to throw the stones?
You mean just only throw the stones only and not something else? He says, throw these stones for
and
me?
not something else.
I haven't heard about this. Question, I've heard that men can't wear gold, but can they wear silver? No, except for a silver ring. What about silver glasses frames? Or what if the frames has a little bit of gold on it? If something is gold or silver plated, then depends on how much the plating is. If it's as much plating, so much plating that if he were to expose it to fire, he could collect that plating, then it's haram, or else it's not haram. طيب. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك